Hello and welcome to Raise the Game, the place to motivate your team to succeed in school, study, and on their screens. And my name is Ray Langan, study skills coach, teen behavior expert, and also Gen Z edutainer. So I try to make education fun and entertaining for Gen Z teenagers born with a mobile phone in their hand. This is the YouTube generation. And I've literally for the last 13 years coached and worked with thousands of students and parents all over the country. And a big issue, and it's interesting. The other day I got a phone call from a mom last Monday of a very concerned parent of a 12-year-old boy. And he is in sixth class. And in her words, she's dreading next September. She knows next September is going to be a real issue because she told me since Christmas, this boy is really struggling with what she described as a whole heap of anxiety. And Sunday nights are a real battle. She said the thoughts of school the next day, this sense of dread, and Monday mornings are really difficult in her house. And I know lots of parents struggle with this, and they have this issue with their sons and daughters. So the question is, how do we get around this? And certainly for students who are transitioning from primary into secondary school, it's a big challenge. And recently I was reading a report from, it was a Scottish report commissioned by the Scottish government. And in this report, it said basically about 36% of students have a positive experience on the transition from primary into secondary school. So, but interestingly, what it said was 22% of students moving from primary to secondary school report a negative experience. And, 42% described it as a moderate transition experience. That means nearly 2/3 of students don't have a positive experience. And the start of secondary school is really important. This is the gateway into adolescence, the teenage years, a difficult time in anybody's life. And part of the challenge for parents is, how do we navigate that? What can we do? How do we get around this? And this purpose of this podcast, I want to give you 10 tips to help you with this, because it's a real difficulty. And I have a program called Making the Move, the transition from primary into secondary school. And I've been doing this for years. And for a lot of students at that stage, there's a sense of excitement, there's a sense of anxiety, there's a sense of newness, because obviously this is a very new and different phase of their life. So this goes out to parents to help you guys. So here's the first tip, and get ready, write these down, grab a pen, grab a piece of paper. If you're in the car, replay this later on. But here's the first thing: you got to change your role. So what I mean by this is, and Dr. William Stixrud and Ned Johnson, if there was one book that I recommend, it's called The Thriving Child. And they talk about this concept of being a supervisor versus being a consultant. So up until now, you're probably supervising your teen. So up until the age of 12, you're literally trying to stop them from killing themselves. So you got to supervise them in the playground, running onto the road, falling off a bike, at home with food and knives and all that type of stuff. But in secondary school, it's a different deal. This is where you become the consultant. And literally you say to them, look, tonight at 7 o'clock, I'm available for an hour. And if you need help with your homework, I'm here. And that's it. So you're not doing the homework for them. I know you will want to do this, but if you do that at the start of secondary school, then they're going to start relying on you for the homework. The second tip is to build a strong morning routine. Now, I teach something called the Miracle Morning in my programs, and this teaches children how to get up in the morning. So in some way, they have to build that morning routine. You're not having to drag them out of bed, make the breakfast, drive them to school. They really need to be able to build that independence, to start doing that themselves. And this is a great opportunity. See the transition from primary into secondary school as an opportunity to help them build new habits. The third, I have here, get to school themselves. I remember last year a mom contacting me with her fifth year boy who was really struggling, and she also had a first and a second year. And after our coaching, she literally stuck them on the bike and let them cycle to school, because before that she was making the breakfast, packing them in the car, driving them to the gates, and her fifth year boy was walking in one door and straight out the other. And in some way you have to earn the right to go to school a little bit. And I think whether it's getting on a bus, or I used to get the train. I know for a lot of rural parents they have to drive them to school, but at least drop them somewhere in the town that they have to walk 100 or 200 or 300 yards. But dropping them to the front door, no. Tip number 4 is the bag. Try to get them to pack their bag the night before. And the other thing about the bag, you get the phone call from parents or from your son or daughter, the gym bag, or they forgot their iPad, or they forgot their homework notebook, or they forgot their geography, and you go sprinting down to the school, you throw it in the car. And I don't suggest that you do that. Leave them. Give them the gift of having to solve that problem themselves. And sometimes having to sit through PE or sit through a class and not have the homework, well, that's a great lesson for them. Tip number 5, I suppose, is around the first day itself. And I suppose the big thing about the first day of secondary school is to make a new friend. So maybe you just tell a story, have a chat with them about the time that you met one of your best friends and how you got to meet that best friend. Because this generation really are struggling with social anxiety. And, the more I talk to teachers, I know a lot of students over the last couple of years have been hiding behind masks. They're afraid to interact. And social phobia is a real problem. So talk to them about that. Tip number 6 is the locker. How to use a locker. And, with lockers can become basically bins. A lot of students, they put all their books in there, and then they've got, wrappers and bits of lunch in their lunchbox from a couple of weeks ago. So they really need to clean the locker once a week. Encourage them to, clean the locker out. You only have 3 or 4 things in the locker, and a lot of students will forget their books. So, if they're working on geography the next day, they might leave the geography book in the locker, and then they can't work on it that night. So that's why tip number 7 is to have a checklist and help them create that checklist. And the type of things you'd have in your checklist is, to write down their homework after each class, to know what books they're bringing home that day, what tests are coming up, have they any meetings with any counsellors, do they need their gym gear. A little checklist is great, and something maybe you put in the inside of the homework diary, and something they can check off. And knowing what books to bring home is crucial. Which brings me to tip number 8, the homework. I get this all the time. How long should the first year spend on their homework? Well, really you're talking about an hour to an hour and a half. And some students will literally spend 10 or 20 minutes and say, well, we don't have much homework. Well, they should be at about an hour to an hour and a half. Now, sometimes because of COVID, teachers have been missing, so they get free classes, and that allows them to do their homework during school time. But they should be spending an hour to an hour and a half. My study sessions are 30 minutes long. And then you can have the student who spends 2 to 3 hours in the homework because they're a perfectionist. So sometimes you've got to try and pull them back from the homework. You don't do the homework for them. Your job is to create the environment at home in which they can flourish. A nice desk, somewhere separate from the kitchen table to do their homework, and somewhere quiet. And yes, the phone, which brings me to tip number 9. This is the big issue. Screen addiction. So you got to set up a rule in your house, and maybe it's no phones during dinner time, and then the phone goes into the car park, and between 7 and 8 or 7 and 9, there's no screens. So literally the Wi-Fi gets turned off, no gaming, whatever the rule is, and it's giving them that space to get their work done. Another big issue with parents is actually texting continually all day, having your sons and daughters on this kind of drip feed of texting. And it's to try and stop that. And sometimes parents are more anxious than the teens, and they're text. Are you okay? Do you need anything? I would try and curtail that, pull that back, and give your child some space. And not that you're checking on them. You leave it open that they can contact you over the course of the day. Which brings me to tip number 10, which is the 2 words that I tell every parent, which is gold dust for the transition from primary to secondary school, which is to let go. Let go. And for a lot of parents, this is really difficult, especially if it's your eldest. This is a particularly big milestone. Your baby is growing up, your child is growing up, but it's to let go and to give them that space and to really acknowledge everything they've achieved up until now, but everything that you've achieved up until now. You've done an amazing job. You should be very proud. It's been a difficult couple of years. Raising children and raising teenagers today is complex. It's difficult. It's messy. And really to acknowledge this milestone in your life and their life. But now it's about giving your child space so they can actually grow up and step up. And it's how you navigate your own anxiety around that. So again, let go and give them that space. So we'll be running some Making the Move programs online. Check out all the places, Facebook, my website, and Eventbrite. We got some Making the Move programs coming up in June and August. And if you're listening to this the others and some other stage of the year, please get in touch. And we'd love to hear from you. We've got the coaching programs going on, the Study Boost, the Anxious to Awesome program. We've got the Study Accelerator and the Quantum Leap program. And then obviously the Raise the Game seminars in the schools. So, but we're just sold out with those at the moment. So lots going on. So it's been a pleasure. I hope this helps. And thank you for joining me. And I hope this will help you help them